911 operators of Reddit, what are some of the funniest things someone has called in for? My dad used to be in charge of the 911 call center. One particular story I remember was in like '09, some guy called asking how much weed he could have in his car while driving through the state. They went back and forth for maybe 20 minutes of the guy repeating and rephrasing the question and my dad just responding none. None. The answer is none. When I worked at a local domestic violence line, someone called in once to report that they ordered a dozen donuts and there was only 11 and the store won't give them another one the next day and their husband is taking it out yelling at the kids, but she didn't want us to talk to her husband but insisted if she could get one donut out the place he would calm down. She had been in and out of the women's shelter so we knew he was a bad person. Well, he got arrested as he wasn't supposed to be there, restraining order, and she called us back, it is a small city org, and was yelling she just wanted one fucking donut not to see him arrested. Yeah, unfortunately the repercussions of him getting arrested are too much to bear if they don't have the support/safety to be on their own against him. I just certified as a call taker and got mandated for overtime, of course, on my first shift. Policy was if someone insisted they saw something we take it as face value and enter the call. Well, this lady called me just after midnight and swore she saw a chupacabra on the west side of Orlando and insisted in an officer doing an area check. Not too long after that a co-worker was in on his night off and left the building. He called 2 minutes later saying he saw a kangaroo hopping down the street. I can't make this shit up. I've had to call animal control about a chupacabra that was killing all the chickens in my neighborhood. I had caught a glimpse of it a few days before in my backyard and couldn't believe what I was seeing. Then I saw it walking down the street in broad daylight and was able to catch a picture and confirm that I wasn't crazy. They told me they had tons of calls about it and to tell all my neighbors to lock up our chickens, bring in any outside animal food and that they had live traps set for it all over. Spoiler alert, it was a coyote completely bald from mange and so skinny you would never recognize it. I was glad they already had calls about it. I knew it was not okay whatever it was, but I had no idea how to describe it aside from El Chupacabra. Thankfully they knew exactly what I was talking about. I briefly worked as a 911 operator. When someone called on the non-emergency line we always answered the same way: blank police and fire, this is a recorded line, how can I help you? We get a call on that line, I answer as usual and a very inebriated sounding woman asks the following: hypothetically speaking, if my boyfriend had a few grams of cocaine and I called the police to tell them about it, would either of us get into any trouble? Mom, you're calling the police on a recorded line. I know, but what does the law say? I don't know, Mom, I'm not a police officer, would you like me to send one? Yes, please. She gives me her address. An officer responded but there were no arrests. That one had me scratching my head. Well, she did say it was hypothetical. There were no arrests, she told you it was hypothetical. Numerous calls where someone has handcuffed themselves to a SO during coitus and lost the key. If it's not busy, this seems to draw most available officers. Not me but a co-worker, a person was pleasuring themselves with the handle of a scissors and it got stuck. Sesame timbers. Okay, so now they have a stinger of sorts. I was a 911 dispatcher years ago but had two calls, specific calls that still make me laugh. A frazzled mother called cause her 6-year-old had gotten into the roof and she couldn't get him down. She kept screaming about how we need to hurry. Not because she was worried he would get hurt, but because he had done it before and last time he peed in the air vents. This was before weed was legal in my state, but a college kid called asking for an ambulance. He was super worried that he was having an allergic reaction to the weed he just smoked. When asked about his symptoms he said, I just can't stop eating Cheetos. Cheetos are hard to stop eating even when you don't smoke weed. When asked about his symptoms he said, I just can't stop eating Cheetos. You're fine, kid, it's working normally. I once called 911 because I cut my finger and wanted to talk to my mom, who was a dispatcher. I called crying asking to talk to her by name. She was more pissed at my dad for not waking up when I tried to go to him first, haha. This is a different response than all the others, definitely the best in my opinion. Well, in your defense, it was kinda a medical emergency. A man requiring extrication from an Under Armour insulated shirt. His shoulder popped out of the socket while he was pulling it on. It was halfway on / halfway off and his arm was locked and dislocated. Edited to add, so you don't think I'm awful, he was laughing, and said I would have driven myself to the hospital but I would have had to drive with my arm out the window. Wow, this happened to me when I was in dance class a few years back. I was wearing a sports bra and my leotard. When I got to the hospital, they cut me out of both BC. I was also stuck, then relocated my shoulder. Was bummed to lose that Leo. Also, that man was tougher than me, I certainly wasn't laughing. Ha. This is wholesome. Was a 911 operator before becoming a paramedic. Had a lot of funny ones, but by far my favorite involved an all too common problem of a kid getting a hold of a locked cell phone and only being able to dial 911. It was Father's Day, mind you. Had this particular kid, about 5 years old, call in at least 6 times, but he'd never stay on the line long enough for us to get a good ping on his cell phone. It was probably about 2200 local at the time, not early but not too late in the night. Long story short, we were finally able to get him to stay on the phone long enough by talking about how his teddy bear was sick. We asked to speak to his parents and he told us they were in bed and the door was locked, so we asked him to go knock on the door. He then told us he had been locked in his room. Okay. I think we know what's going on now. By this point we had an officer en route to this kid's house to go make sure everything was okay and to tell his parents the kid has been calling 911. The officer arrives on scene, a few minutes go by, then the officer comes over the radio and says S120 back in service, the teddy bear is 10-4. The officer made his way up to the comm center and proceeded to tell us all that the kid's dad answered the door wearing only boxer shorts and was more than a little agitated when he found out his son had been calling 911. Apparently the dad had been getting his Father's Day gift from mom when the officer showed up. I guess not wanting the kid to walk in on you mid-coitus, but it's still very cruel to lock a child in their room without access to a toilet or water. Just lock your bedroom door, people. A little kid called 911 because he wanted the cops to come arrest his brother. You see, their mom said that the caller's brother was supposed to share the Legos, but he wasn't sharing. The caller's brother said that he was playing with all of the Legos, which wasn't possible. There were too many Legos for one person to play with all of them at once, argued our caller. Therefore, his brother was a liar, a jerk, and a turd, and we needed to come and arrest him. We had a high degree of confidence that this wasn't a coded request for help, so we asked to speak to an adult, confirmed that there was no distress, and closed the case. Share your Legos, kids. P.S. If your kid ever calls 911, don't get mad at them. We want them to call 911 if they think they need to. We would much rather have them call 911 for something silly than have them be afraid to call when they should because they think they'll get in trouble. I accidentally called twice. Once in like first grade when we learned about it and I was practicing, but my practicing used too much force and dialed. Then I did it once at my grandma's house, but that was not my fault at all. I went into her room for a legitimate reason, flipped the light switch, it didn't work. I tried it a few more times, then found another switch. Then I found out the light switch was a 911 alert, which is a stupid way to make it. I hid under the bed when the police arrived. Loved the one where a kid called 911 for help with his math homework and the dispatcher actually did. I don't know if this counts as funny. I'm from a small town. Everyone knows everyone. My Uncle Jimmy's a cop. All the dispatchers and first responders know my grandma pretty well. One day, my uncle was working on something electrical in the basement. He was shocked. He was unconscious, but he ended up being fine. My grandma called 911, and screamed into the phone, "V. It's Kate. Jimmy's been shocked." What the dispatcher heard was, "Jimmy's been shot." Every single police officer, sheriff's deputy, EMS, paramedic, firefighter, and park ranger in town arrived at my grandma's house. My uncle was super confused and embarrassed. Imagine the feeling when literally everyone shows up to help you. He's down here. How did this happen? He was working on the electrical panel and must have touched the wrong wire. Okay, but who shot him? What? Subscribe for more hot Reddit takes in your inbox, guaranteed.